All the fun of real gladiatorial combat, but without the soap opera, or the steroids. This is Sega Masters. We come to another staple of many 1980s childhoods, professional wrestling. The often debated sport that may be more about the show than the actual athleticism, but still entertaining nonetheless. Pro wrestling was especially big in the mid to late 1980s, so it's not surprising that the different consoles received wrestling carts, even the Atari 2600 and Intellivision. The NES certainly had a few wrestling titles in its lineup around this time, though the one that really stands out is Nintendo's own beloved classic cart that's also dubbed Pro Wrestling. Yes, the same name as the Sega release we're spotlighting today. But other than covering the same subject matter and bearing the same somewhat generic title, the two carts have nothing in common. The Sega cart is actually an adaptation of an old wrestling arcade game called Body Slam, or as it was known in Japan, Dump Masamoto, which featured an all-female roster duking it out in the ring. When Sega brought Body Slam to their console in both regions, the Japanese version kept the female wrestlers, but the US version saw them changed into stereotypical male grapplers. Sadly, we have another example of Sega's clueless North American marketing in the pre-Sonic era, as they saddled pro wrestling with this what the heck cover. Honestly, how did Sega survive until the Genesis? In any case, Sega's pro wrestling focuses exclusively on tag team competition. You choose from one of 4 pairings and try to defeat an opposing duo in the ring that's controlled by the CPU or a second player. In an interesting feature, the teams on the right, the Orient Express and the Crush Brothers, are pretty much the good guy teams, while the Mad Soldiers and the Great Masked Men are your rule breakers, and this actually comes into play during the match. Thing is, the action is limited to good guys versus bad guys, meaning you can't have the soldiers against the masked men and so on. Once the teams are selected, it's time to get ready for some wrestling, as your team begins their quest to win the championships of 3 different leagues, Mexican, Pacific, and World. Now, pro wrestling does a nice job mimicking the spectacle of the real sport, including seeing the wrestlers make their entrances into the arena. Too bad the solid presentation doesn't have the championship level gameplay to back it up. After both teams are in the ring, the bell sounds and it's go time. You basically try to pound your opponents to empty his stamina meter enough to pin them for a 3 count or force a submission. The action for the most part involves you punching and kicking your foe enough to knock him down, yet this game feels the need to inform you that you threw a punch or a kick, despite clearly seeing what you did based on the appendage you're using. Once your foe is on his back, you can then whip him into the ropes and bust out one of your grappler's special attacks, which are also helpfully identified on the screen. Other techniques can be used by standing near your downed foe and holding the button down for a second, and all the wrestlers use the same setup for their moves. Of course, you can tag your partner in at any time to get the fresh man in the ring, while the other rests and regains his energy. As mentioned earlier, this game does employ somewhat of a good guy bad guy system, as the bad guy teams can go out and bring a chair in the ring to use as a weapon, doing serious damage in the process. The good guy teams, on the other hand, can climb to the top rope and use a high flying maneuver, which works if it connects. The 2 active men can even head out to the floor to duke it out, but you have a 20 count to get back in or be counted out. Once you do enough damage, you can cover your opponent and hopefully get the 3 count for the pin. Unfortunately, all the nice features can't cover up how shallow the gameplay really is. You mostly just punch or kick, knock down, whip, and special move over and over, which makes the action come down to not much more than basic button mashing with little actual grappling or strategy involved. Also, having only 4 teams doesn't offer much depth competition-wise, so Sega decided to have you face the same team 10 times to win each tier's championship belt. Yes, 10 falls against the same team in the same ring, with no noticeable bump in the difficulty level, as you can often win the match with just a few moves. If that wasn't enough, each round has a 3-minute time limit, and if time expires, you lose, even if you have more energy than the other team. At least the game is nice enough to offer a few continues should you fail to score the victory. The visuals and audio get body slammed as well. All the characters have a cutesy deformed look as well as some goofy animation when moving around or performing moves, though their reactions when getting hit are quite humorous. There's not much else to see other than the ring, the referee who's constantly dancing around or something during the match, and the static crowd. Only one background tune plays during the action, and it gets tiresome after a short time, while the sound effects are dinky and muffled. When you cover your opponent for the pin, you hear the referee count the fall, but his words are barely coherent. Should you somehow score 10 straight falls, your team wins the championship belts of that league, and you jet off to challenge for the next title. Which involves you facing the next team 10 more times, and so it goes until you win 30 straight rounds for all 3 belts, or until you get tired of facing the same team over and over, which is more likely. The slightly better 2-player mode just has you and your opponent controlling a duo for a quick 1-fall match with no time limit, but that's it. So overall, Sega's Pro Wrestling fails to contend as a wrestling title or as an entertaining cartridge in general, even with its few innovative features. Those who were raised on modern wrestling games will certainly be bored in no time, while even fans of classic grappling carts will be hard-pressed to stick around this ring. Definitely put a sleeper hold on this game in favor of other, more worthy carts.